Hello Tubesters, it's Gav. Welcome to another one of my videos. This is just the first real update, I believe, on the M48A2 build that I'm doing as part of the group build, which is the heavy armour, heavy guns group build. I've chosen, mine is it says 1 in 35 on the box. A Tubester has told me it's actually a 1 in 32 kit, and I'm probably more inclined to believe that because like the shovels and that are a lot bigger than I mean, yes, they could just be bigger, but the whole kit, I mean, this one is embossed 1966. I mean, it's not an original 66, but you know, that's when this particular thing was come out. And everything is really clunky. There's when I say fit issues, it's not so much that pieces don't fit, it's just that there's huge gaps everywhere and whatever. It's weird, I'm throwing time in places. I've not filled all the gaps. I don't really see a sense, especially if I'm putting it in mud and water, hopefully. I've done other bits and pieces which probably aren't really worth it. So I've spent time in some areas and not in others, and there's not really a rhyme or reason to that. To be fair. Also, I was going to do. I was undecided. I was going to have it sunk in the mud, as I told you the tale before about the. I'm not sure, I believe they were Marine Corps tanks that had. That they'd harboured up in an area where the officer had said, and they didn't. I believe that's right, and they'd all sunk in the mud, and they couldn't get them out. And then the rescue thing hit a mine, and it was just a while to get them out. And obviously they're all sitting ducks while they're there. Yes, they've got a lot of firepower, but they're still sat in the mud. But I've seen obviously M48s in Vietnam fording swampy ground and things, and that's what I thought I might do with this one, because I can cover a lot of the build problems, not problems, but you know, fit issues and stuff. I'm still putting the sandbags on. The reason I'm doing this quick video is I've just started putting sandbags on. I just want to show it in its unprimed state before I put some primer on, depending on how. If I get all the sandbags put on today, I'll prime it tomorrow, and if not, I'll prime it the next day. So let's go down to the bench and have a look. Apologise, by the way, no black card that I normally put down, it's just on the workbench with everything else. I've got 6mm in the corner there. I've got bits of the Lexington in the corner there. Don't get me started on the Lexington. Don't go there. So let's go down and take a look. Right guys, thanks for joining me at the bench. Yes, we're slightly messy. Really got to get back to painting some figures on Monday. This is the M48. There's a lot, you know, you can see they've done a basic form of the tank. There's lots of differences with the mud guards and stuff, and I was thinking, oh, I need to cut this off, and I was going to remove the mud guards, and I just thought, I'm just multiplying trouble that I don't need. It's the vehicles of its era. I mean the mould, or whatever you want to call it. You know, 1966. It's just opening up a can of worms. You know what I mean? I mean, one thing I did do. Let's just take this off for a moment. Oh dear, something's just broke off. Oh, that was a bit of plastic that's still got on the back. That's all right. Phew. Right. I was going to use plastic card to plastic sheet, styrene sheet, whatever you want to call it, to put underneath the sandbags. What I did. Right, let's go down. I drilled out, I chain drilled all these engine louvers out, so it's the best lighting I've got, because they were solid, and I just thought, well, that'll look alright, and that took me a good couple of nights just with a 0.5mm drill bit, just drilling. The problem is I've left a load of chain drilling marks in, and although I tried to skim it out with a fresh blade on the scalpel and then put some hot glue on to try and melt it a bit more flatter, it still left like chain drilling marks, so maybe it wasn't one of Gav's bestest ideas, but never mind. So I've left the rear deck, which could be done with being drilling out. These are the exhaust louvers. You'll usually see them all caked in black soot, and I did think of drilling those out, but again, it's just going to end up looking all chain drilled, if that makes sense. So I've just left it. They haven't even got any D-ring shackles and stuff, and I thought we'd put some D-rings on. I thought, well, what's the point? You're going to be sticking it in ooze and mud. We've got some gaps and that. There's gaps all over the shop, to be honest with you. But again, it's all being slopped in mud. Now, the problem is if I'm going to have the tank, sat there in mud, I thought, well, do I have the hatches closed or not? And it just didn't look right to me in my head. So I've opened up the crew hatches, which were made to be open, to be honest with you. They don't, you'd have to do a bit of stuff to get them to shut properly. Now, the only Vietnam figures I've got I've still got the figures that were talking to the hookers, the happy ladies as I called them in Vietnam, but they're not they're in the back alleys of Saigon. They're not they're not, they've got no flak jackets on. They're not, there's nothing to them. They're just in fatigues, and I thought, well, that can't really work, and I want to save them for a completely un-Vietnam related project that's been in my head for about 2 years since I've had them, so I'll get that done sometime this year. Now, Frederick had sent me 3 resin Vietnam, because he knows I really like Vietnam, and he'd sent me 3 Vietnam figures about a year ago, and I've been saving them for a rainy day. Now, they are 1 in 35, this is 1 in 32, not much I can do about that, but they're in relaxed poses. The one I can't use really, it's not really related to this, so I've got the 2 crewmen, which are really for it, or they're shown on an M113, but you can have them sat round. That's not a problem. But I didn't know if they were stuck in the mud up to there. Yeah, they could be waiting for a tow and things like that. So they're an option. If all else fails, I'll use those 2. But they won't really sit around the tank hatches themselves. Might get one in the loader's position. But they wouldn't be able to fit one in the crew commanders. I was going to remove the 50. Now, there are enough photographs of these retaining the 50 in the commander's cupola. This little block here, I believe, is a pintle mount for a 50. So I've also seen them with 30 cals, with 50 cals, you name it. Extras on, but they're quite often depicted without these. But again, I'd have to do some modifications, and I just thought I just don't really want to do that. So I've seen enough pictures with them still attached, so I've left that on. I'm going to put either another 50 or another 30 on top. I know they didn't have a lot of 30s on these, but we'll just say that it was a Buckshee one. Buckshee's British Army talk for an extra one, either been stolen by the crew, or that's what Buckshee is in the British Army, or at least it's a spare they've managed to obtain from somewhere. So I'm going to stick another 50 or a 30 on top of that at some point. As you can see, I've done texture on this, and yes, I'm filling a load of texture bit up, but I didn't think for the time, it didn't particularly bother me. I wasn't sure how many sandbags and what I was going to do with them. I've seen them, these will often have tank rider rails on as well. I've seen them, as in from the European theatre, or the early ones, and this is an early one, and I've seen them just literally half-heartedly hang sandbags by the neck of the sandbag off the tank. But I've seen them go to town, where you've probably seen them as well, where they're literally sangers, as we'd say in the British Army. So literally like a fort tower, and they literally make a huge blockhouse of sandbags when they're doing road convoys. I didn't want to go that far, so what I'm doing is building up sandbags. These 2 here I've got spare. As you can see, I've added my version of the canvas. I've used some thin plastic sheet plus the putty to make the canvas fume to stop the dust getting into the gun's mechanism. I just had 2 bits left over, but there will be some sandbags on the top here. I know it'll slightly, you won't get the depression on the gun if it was in real time, but I've seen them like that. So obviously if they were doing that in Vietnam and just taking the hit, that they couldn't get the depression completely, but it covered more of the crew up. Because let's face it, these were often used in fire bases where there were human wave attacks and that, so they needed to have extra machine guns and stuff on. Shame I'm sorry, that's me. Scissors on the floor. I haven't got any M60s or anything, but what I'm going to do is build the sandbags up. Let's show it, Gav. Build the sandbags up to here. Charlie Mack is doing multiple track links. I'm doing multiple sandbags. I've done a few smaller ones and where hits have happened, and we'll get some sand running out of them at some point. So there are 2 big jerry cans on the side here. They're just going to be put over. I might put jerry cans in the back here, but that's going to be maybe tarped over just to save me using up stuff. I'm going to try, I don't know if it'll work, but make some deck chairs. We call them deck chairs in the UK. I don't know about any garden chairs, whatever you want to call them. I've seen them often hanging off the back of M48s in Vietnam. So I'm going to try and make a couple of simplistic ones of those and hang them off the back, so we'll lose all this cruddy detail that's over thick, and it's got ejector marks and all that. So hopefully that'll all be disguised to an extent. And as I say, we won't have a complete fort, a sangha as we would say in the British Army, but we'll have it beefed up with sandbags. So that's that. We'll have a load of stowage all over the place where I'm trying to hide and blend in some of the clunkiness of the tank. As I say, this wasn't here in the real one. I did think, as I say, of ripping up. I've seen them with perfect. I think people call them fenders. I just call them mudguards, but perfect mudguards on the front. Which one? This one's going to have, just because I just didn't want to get into. It's a whole can of worms, opening up other stuff. I've seen them with a bit of like L angle there, as we call it, L-shaped angle, and that's going to obviously have some just tack welded on, and have a load of sandbags put up the front of that. I'd like to know, can anybody tell me what this is? I mean, it's coming out near the driver. Is it a fume extractor? Because I don't see it on the ones in Vietnam. In fact, I haven't seen it on any of them. But is it a fume extractor? Is it I don't know, is it for wading? I mean, it's a small exhaust for wading when you've got all this exhaust at the back. But I'm putting it down, it's a fume extractor. I've drilled the end out because it was cut off on an angle. So if anybody does know what that is, I'd be grateful. They've got moulded on giant tracks here. Obviously I'm keeping all that on. I tried to do a straight line, but it was rubbish to try and do a lid on that, and I just stuck some bits of sheet again on the back just to show where they're welded on, the hinges type of thing. That's about it really. What I'm going to do is have a fording the water, so the wheels are probably, I'm going to end up painting the wheels. I might do, I might not, I don't know yet. Definitely the return rollers at the top, because what I plan to do is I've got some, sorry, that's me knocking me thing now. I had to drill out the end as well. It's not perfect, I know that, but it'll do. If she's fording the water, that's what I say, I can't very well have the 2 relaxed guys on the back, because she's actually doing something. I'm not saying she's under fire, but she's obviously, you're fording a big mucky water. The guys are at least going to be looking where they're going, and I'd have to put a driver in. I couldn't close up the hatches because he wouldn't be closed up unless he was under fire. So I've got some Tamiya actually Mamara Victor at Vic's Miniatures sent me this along with the Sherman, and I built the Sherman, was it last year or the year before, can't remember. So now I'm building this. Now I've still got the tank crew from that Sherman, so what I'm going to hope to do, they're in World War II gear, but I was hoping to maybe sculpt well, this guy's only got I'll still have to sculpt a flak jacket on him, at least partially, and do a helmet for him, and do a helmet, and do the same for these two guys here. And I'll just stick a bit of sprue on to stick them down on. You might still see the inside of the nothingness inside the tank, but as I say, it's a bit of sleight of hand really. So that's what the idea is. We're going to have sandbagged up. When you see her next time, she should be sandbagged and primered. Might even be greened over with like a bronzy green. I'm not picking use whatever I've got. You know, I might even have to use acrylic on it. But we'll do a bronzy green colour on it. I've almost got rid of that seam line. It's not perfect, but it's probably the best Gav was going to do. And that's about it really. Yeah, so she'll all be sandbagged. Have some sandbags at the front. We'll have some stowage on the front and the back, because they're always well stowaged up. We'll either stowage the back so it's actually can be seen in this bustle here at the back, or I'll tarp it and just have the deck chairs. If I can make the deck chairs. If I can't make deck chairs, I'll just tarp it over as if they're just trying to keep things dry. That's about it really, I think. Yeah, so making life complicated as I do for myself by not so much the sandbags, but by, if I've never done any real conversions like that on figures before. So I'm gonna attempt to do the helmets, those tanker helmets, because they've got the World War II ones. We'll do some Vietnam era tanker, 60s tanker helmets, and we'll probably have to stick some flak jackets on them. I mean, what can possibly go wrong? So yeah, that's it. I don't know if I'll get this done for the end of the group build, which is it beginning of February or end of February, I'm not sure. But I'd like to get this actually all done, at least the tank done, everything in the next week. But I'll start trying to work on the figures as well. In the loads of spare time that I have to do anything else. So yeah, it's a clunky old tank, probably a bit out of the 135 scale. You can make your minds up on that. I don't know if it's 1 in 32, 35. I'm not very good on stuff like that. Should say everything is clunky and out of scale. It is what it is, you know. We're just trying to. I wanted to do a Vietnam tank. I wanted to do this because Victor had sent it me, and I wanted to get this one done as well. I'd had the idea in my head for a couple of years. So we're just. Some bits will look really rough, other bits a bit more like I've gone to town on it, you know. But it'll tell a story anyway. It'll tell a story of an army tanker unit fording a swampy bit of ground in Vietnam in the early 60s. Well, you know, we'll say 66, something like that, as the tank was, this mould was done in 66, so we'll say 66, 67. Like that. Right, thanks for joining me. I've waffled again, I always do. I try and tell myself it's going to be quick videos, and they never are. So look after yourselves. If you're in the group build, the Heavy Armour, Heavy Guns group build, hosted by Joachim and Marcus, I hope your builds are going on fine. I know a lot of people like Doug Ensley have done theirs already. I'm a bit late to the party. And otherwise, if anything else that you're doing, I hope it's all going well for you. So take care, and we'll catch each other soon on another video.